Welcome to The Flirty Vegan, the podcast that motivates you to thrive through plant-based living. I'm your host, Jenny Shafitz, certified life, breathwork, and vegan lifestyle coach. After decades of dieting and deprivation, I found the secret to living a compassionate, nourished life. Whether you've been vegan for years or you're just flirting with the idea, prepare to be inspired by real people who courageously chose health and love. It's time to look better, feel better, and do better. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Flirty Vegan Podcast. My name is Jenny Shafitz and I'm your host. And my goal here on this podcast is to share stories from amazing people around the world who are living deeply rooted in their ethics and creating a purpose-filled life based on those ethics. Whether it's Thomas Wade Jackson, who's a documentary filmmaker, or Rabbi David Rosen, or snack food company founder Rachel Daum, you will find inspiration in every single episode. And so I want to shine a light on all the different avenues people travel to get to veganism with the hope of debunking some myths and encouraging you to shift your perspective. Because I will admit, when I was in college, I took a class on social ethics. I don't remember the exact name, but we talked about all kinds of issues that were controversial or emotional. Things like veganism, I do remember, and euthanasia and abortion, things that sparked debate. And I remember there was a vegan in the class who talked about not wearing leather and using only canvas bags. And it struck me in that moment, in my, let's be honest, ignorant young adulthood, I thought she was kind of crazy. I thought it sounded really extreme, and I made assumptions about her life and how strange and hippie-ish it must be. And now that I'm living the vegan life, as are all my guests, I want you to see just how wrong my younger self's assumptions were and how beautiful, abundant, peaceful, not to mention the obvious, healthy, delicious, affordable, family-friendly this lifestyle is, which are really huge benefits. So if you've been tuning in and you are flirting with the idea of going vegan, then it is with so much love and joy that I invite you to experiment, to try this lifestyle, like for real. And I know it can feel daunting. I've been there. I get it. And if I had been able to find a coach, a guide back when I went vegan, I know it would have made things so much easier. So that's why I do this. I have done so much research, gotten certified as a vegan lifestyle coach. I'm getting certified in plant-based nutrition because I want to provide clients with not just personal stories and anecdotes, but science and information, recipes, product ideas. I want to give you all the information that I had to find on my own. And look, I get it. You can AI your way through it. That is an option. But I think we all know when it comes to personal growth, whether it's getting in shape or learning a new skill, having an actual human to work with makes an enormous difference. So whether you're motivated by a desire to reduce animal cruelty, improve the fate of the environment and the planet, or to improve your health, or some combination of all of those, I'm here to support you in every way possible. So please head to the show notes and book a free connection call. My coaching packages are designed to address your individual needs because you might be the parent with a whole lot of kids at home still, or you might be a single person, or you might be more senior in age, or you might be someone who travels for work. You will have unique concerns, and I want to help you with them because I do truly believe that a whole food, plant-based, vegan lifestyle is the optimal way to live. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it is the whole deal. And now I want to introduce you to this week's podcast guest. Lauren Ornelas is the founder and general programs team member of Food Empowerment Project, a vegan food justice nonprofit that promotes veganism, fights for farm workers, works on lack of access to healthy foods in Black and brown communities, and encourages people not to buy chocolate sourced from the worst forms of child labor, including slavery. She has been active in the animal rights movement since 1987. Yes, you heard that right. Having started the first high school animal rights group in San Antonio, Texas, and then Action for Animals, a group she launched in college and that is still active in Austin. In 1999, Lauren was asked by Viva UK to start and run Viva USA. As the leader of Viva USA, Lauren investigated factory farms and ran consumer campaigns, working with activists nationwide. In cooperation with other activists, Lauren persuaded Trader Joe's to stop selling duck meat, convinced Pier 1 Imports to stop using feathers, and was the spark that got the former CEO of Whole Foods Market to become a vegan. Wow, that's amazing. She also helped halt the construction of an industrial dairy operation in California. In addition, Lauren served as campaign director with the Silicon Valley Toxics Coalition for 6 years. Watch Lauren's TEDx talk on the power of our food choices. And that's really the biggest takeaway that I want you to experience from this and all the other episodes, the empowerment piece. Yes, it's a part of her organization's name, but it's also the foundation to feeling good as a vegan. It is so empowering to make food choices that align with our values to be healthy, yes, also to inflict no harm on living creatures and to take care of this planet. Remembering that we just celebrated Earth Day, but Earth Day is every day. So with that, I am so excited to bring you my conversation with Lauren Ornelas. Well, we're back for another episode, and I am so excited to welcome Lauren Ornelas to the show. Lauren, hi.
Hello, thanks for having me.
This is super exciting because I have consumed a lot of content that has included you, podcasts and articles, and I'm glad to finally be in your space with the real you and not just the the recorded you.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be able to chat with you in the real too.
Yes, thank you. So, on this show, we are having conversations that hopefully speak to the audience of people flirting with veganism. People, I mean, hopefully current vegans are listening, but also people who are just curious about this conversation, what it might look like, why do this, what possible reason would I have for giving up all of these things that I've been eating forever? What would the benefits be? So we cover a lot of different angles, perspectives of veganism here. So I like to start off by asking my guests, what attracted you to veganism?
It's pretty easy. It's the animals. I grew up in Texas, so I saw a lot of cows everywhere, and I think that the idea of being responsible for why a mom and baby wouldn't be together just was something I didn't want to be responsible for. And so, yeah, that led me to stop eating animals at a young age. We didn't have a lot of money, so eventually had to go back to it. But by the time I was 16, I was determined to be just eat peanut butter and jelly every day if I had to. And then by
Right?
the time I was 17, 18 is when I went vegan.
Okay. Now, that's really interesting to me, the way you phrase that as separating a mom and baby, not wanting to pull apart a family. How did you know at a young age that that's what was happening?
My parents were getting a divorce. My parents were getting a divorce when I was 4. And I knew, that, I didn't want to be separated from my family. My mom had to work, and my sisters and she raised my sisters and I by herself. And so I didn't want to be separated from her or my sisters. And I think that I just could, I don't, I think it was just over time seeing them and just knowing like just excruciating pain, thinking about if that mama didn't come home or that baby didn't come home, like just how horrible that would be. I could just, even when I was little, I could just feel it. And even like when I would get weak, like, oh, everybody else is eating food that I can't eat or whatever. That is what I would put to my mind in order to get me to not crave it anymore.
Mm,
So, and I went, this was in Texas in the 70s, so it
mm.
wasn't really a lot of options back then. And so, that's the only thing I can think about. It's hard to know, but that's the only thing I could correlate is like, well, that must be why when I was in elementary school, I, stopped eating animals because of what was going on in my own life.
It's a fascinating connection that you bring up, but I gotta say, I don't think that's very common. I don't think there are a lot of elementary school age kids. I don't think there's a lot of adults walking around that connect animals as having families. I just don't. Maybe you speak to more understanding people, more evolved, empathic people, but I don't think I know a lot of people who give much thought to animals having families.
I kind of feel like a lot of children have a lot of empathy towards animals. And, they do think about these things, but I think as they get
Yeah.
older, it kind of becomes you're weird or grow up or there's something wrong with
Yes.
it. So I
Mm,
think that we initially do start out that way. We do start
right.
out with this great affection for animals, and that's
Mm,
why, cartoons and TV shows, the stuff that
yeah.
they're watching
Yeah.
is reinforcing that. But as they get older, there's a shift that happens to where somehow caring about animals, you need to grow out of that instead of
Yeah.
realizing that our world would be in a much better place if everybody held on to that empathy and that compassion.
Indeed. Okay. And I should put a disclaimer here that I don't mean to insult the people I know and talk to about this way of life. I just think you're probably right. It's just like beaten out of us philosophically to be stronger, not think like that, not God, if we were to crumble every time we drove by a farm and had an empathic thought, no one would get anything done.
Yeah, I mean, think about cartoons like Dumbo,
Mm,
the mom and the baby being separated.
for
That's
sure.
heartbreaking.
Yep,
You've got
Bambi.
Bambi. So
Yep.
you have these things
Yeah.
that when you're a kid, it kind of reinforces this empathy that we're supposed to have
Yes.
towards animals. And
Yeah.
so I actually think that we all have it. We all make that connection, but somehow in the process of growing older, we're shamed for having that
Yeah.
compassion.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard and I think even adults today, right? Like when they go home or they have friends who are not, but they want to go vegan, it's hard for them to navigate situations where they're made to feel different or, oh, just eat whatever, it doesn't matter. And then, so I think that all of that stays with you. And when you're younger, I think you're much more influenced, but obviously you don't have the ability to choose what you eat.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get into a conversation because the things that I want to ask you all stem around the same main issue of ethics and responsibility and deep-rooted compassion. So, gosh, and there's a lot of directions that we could go in and that you can help steer as far as farm workers and social responsibility and slavery and all that stuff. But I want to start off by going into, okay, so let's first start with, there's a lot of people, and I interviewed, let me preface this by saying around Thanksgiving I interviewed a man, you might know who he is, Andrew DeCoriolis. He works for an organization called Farm Forward,
Mm.
and it's about improving, if not eliminating, because that's probably not likely, at least improving the the practices of farming animals, actually meaning humane when labels say humane. So we live in a time where people want to purchase humanely raised, pasture raised, cage free, all those lovely sounding terms. But if people are mostly compassionate, caring beings, I don't know, how do you explain the argument of people still wanting to purchase meat as long as it has that label on it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the concerns about those labels, right? I mean, you never, for me at least, like I never want to shame anybody for wanting to go that route. I buy cage, I buy cage
Hmm.
free. I do this because it's like, wow, you care. Like they
Hmm.
always
Right.
should be encouraged. Like, thank you for having that.
Yeah.
But those labels make people feel okay about it with the reality that at the end of the day, these animals are killed. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, they are being transported in horrific conditions. And so if you care that much, you need to take that extra step to stop eating them because those labels aren't going to protect that. I mean, and then you can go into the fact that the labels are really disingenuous to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's
Exactly.
layer upon layer there, but I think for me, it's just always wanting to make sure that we, applaud people for being that compassionate, but reminding them there's another part to that that you can't get away from unless you
Yeah.
stop eating them.
Yeah, it really is so ingrained, this idea that the labels are meaningful, that big business is right, that these initiatives put out by the government are factual and well-intentioned. Drink milk to grow strong, and pork, it's the other white meat, and all these things that I grew up with. And yet I was a big purchaser. I spent a lot of money on the grass-fed,
Mhm.
organic, humane, pasture, cage-free, free range, with the pictures of the pretty little animals dancing around the fields.
Right.
And it didn't occur to me. I'd like to think I'm a pretty smart person. I'm certainly well educated. I've spent a lot of money on education. However much of that has created synapses in my brain, I don't know. But I spent a lot of time in school. And I thought I was smart. I thought I was doing the right thing by making those purchases. What do we do about
Yeah.
the majority of people out there doing that same thing?
Well, one of the things I've started to do is like, especially when you think about like sustainable seafood and the whole sustainability thing,
Mm.
is reframe it. Like sustainability for who? Is it sustainable for the animal that they're losing their life? No.
Mm.
Is it sustainable for the workers? Is it sustainable for the environment? So kind of taking a look at how we're looking at when we look at things and people who want to live sustainably. What does sustainable mean to you? Because sustainable to me means that every living being is able to live their life to the fullest and be treated with dignity and respect. And if that's not part of it, then that's not sustainable in the world I want to see.
Yeah. I guess I'll out myself here, and for anyone who hasn't heard a previous episode, I've probably outed myself before, but I have no problem admitting that I was clearly living in my own bubble of beautiful unawareness, because I have thought of myself as a kind, caring empath of a person, and yet until I started going deep into my vegan journey, I gave no thought to the humans. Well, I went vegan and I cared about animals. And
Right.
actually, I started with the environment. So, cared about the environment, cared about the animals. I gave no thought to the giant machine that makes food come into my house. And I have learned on my own journey, as well as listening to people like you who have educated me, that it is a massively damaged, corrupt, sad system of getting food into supermarkets. Now, that being said, I am not growing my own food. I don't have some
Yeah.
hydroponic garden in my kitchen. I have to buy food. So, can you enlighten this audience a little bit about the the shameful food practices and system that we're immersed in?
Sure. I mean, that's a big one. What I'm
Yeah,
saying
I
too
mean,
is
right.
that
We don't have a 4 hour podcast, but dumb it
yeah.
down.
I mean, I would think too, I want to say that the way that your progression is the ideal, right? That once you start thinking outside yourself, you start thinking about the environment, or you start thinking about animals, or you start thinking about workers, it kind of opens your mind and your horizon to thinking about others.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I prefer the vegan term because it is about for many of us, it's about compassion. It's about
Yes.
surely making sure that others are being taken care of. And
Yeah.
that widens all of our circle of compassion. So I'm like you, like I've lived in apartments my whole life. I don't have anywhere to grow food or anything like that. So it is a constant burden on where do we
Mm,
get our food. And so, you know, I think that when we look at the food system, it's recognizing that every step of the way, there's humans exploited for it, that we don't value food. We do not, we may talk about the cost of it, but we don't
mhm.
truly value the people who are putting the food on our plates, rather that be the farm worker who's picking our produce to the fast food worker or the cashier. We don't think about the fact that, it's ironic that during the lockdown, they were deemed essential workers. Yet none of them
Not
got,
in everyday life.
yeah, they didn't get compensated.
Right.
Like, so we know that they're
Yeah.
important, but
That
we're not
term meant that they
doing
had to go to work so that we could get our food.
exactly.
They were essential
Um,
to everybody else.
Yeah, they're essential in putting their lives on the line,
Yeah.
risking their own health,
Yeah.
and not getting compensated for it in the process. And so I think that we don't even look at those things. We don't talk about those things in terms of it. And Food Empowerment Project tries to shine the light on that and tries to say, like, look, farm workers work in horrendous conditions. They are, treated without any type of dignity or respect. They aren't paid well. They suffer wage theft, sexual harassment. A lot of them are unhoused. They live in their pickup trucks and cardboard boxes, and yet they're the ones putting food on our plates. And
Yeah.
many times they don't even have access to the type of foods in which they're picking
Gee,
fresh fruits and fresh vegetables.
that's the
Uh,
definition of irony, right?
Injustice too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, I think that the whole food system as a whole, isn't broken. It was honestly made to sustain itself on the backs of Black, brown, and indigenous people who do the work
Yeah.
to put food on our plates. And, for looking at a different type of system, we need to look at every aspect of the food, from it being planted, from it being harvested, from it being trucked, from who's distributing that food, and also who has access to that food.
Hmm.
Why is it that Black, brown, and indigenous communities are the ones that, live in communities where dietary diseases are incredibly high because they simply don't have access to fresh fruits and fresh
Right.
vegetables? So it's a system that wasn't made to benefit us. And so, when our ideal would be everybody growing their own food, right? So that you're off the system that was meant that puts profits over people, but not everybody has that ability. So for people like us, we really do recommend worker-owned cooperatives where the
Mm.
workers are the ones making the decisions. The money is staying in the communities. And so really having, and it creates entrepreneur skills for people who are working at that cooperative. So really having those types of things being invested in and us supporting them, knowing that every worker-owned cooperative that I know of really invests in their community and make sure that seniors and others are able to get fruits and vegetables at a
Yeah.
lower cost.
Those are few and far between, though. At least where I live, I know of one co-op. I mean, in this era of Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and the big, huge markets and the warehouse clubs, how does a co-op even survive?
Yeah, I don't know of many. I mean, I have a cooperative where I live, but it's a member cooperative, not a worker cooperative. I
Yeah.
would love it to
Okay.
be a worker cooperative.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree. They're not that, there aren't that many, but I think that as things are happening in the world, the idea of us being more community based and being more focused on community and the power that community has, I'm hoping that there will be
Yeah.
more cropping up. And
Mm.
I know that the worker-owned cooperatives are very interested and always eager. We worked with one, Mandela, in Oakland, California, to try to. They came into the community we were working on that didn't have access to healthy foods, and we coordinated 3 community meetings with them, coming in and talking to the community about worker-owned cooperatives. And I know that there was a point in time, I'm not sure it's at right now, where that community was preparing to create one in their community. So I think some of it's awareness and making sure that people know about their existence. And then, of course, us supporting them as well.
Yes. Now, I in my journey have, as I explained to you, it's as I learn more, I change and adapt and I was buying the humanely raised meat prior. And so then I switched to vegan and I started off a really strong junk food vegan. So it took me a
Mhm.
while to get into the um the selfish,
Right.
the more me focused aspect of wow, I get to care for the environment and the animals and also benefit my own health. I don't have to be a martyr for the system here and just
Right.
eat Oreos and non-dairy ice cream. So I've gotten more focused on that, which has enlightened me in so many ways. But I think there's people in my life, and I imagine just in general, people I don't know who maybe have a vegan in their life who's behaving like I am. And they're looking at this as this is too much. There's just too much. There's too much, Lauren, to think about. I've got to think
Yeah.
about cutting out all the damn animal products that you just told me I shouldn't be eating, all the things that are traditional and integral to me as a person. Now I've got to think about organic because I know pesticides and all that junk that's on the crops I should avoid. Now I need to think about workers and what I should just try to find a farmer down the street from me that's growing carrots and lettuce and get my stuff from him because at least I can put a face to it. So I think there's people who just look at that and say, it's too much. I'm just going to eat the way I'm freaking eating and to hell with all of it. What can you say to the people who are overwhelmed and think that it's all too much and maybe even some of it is fake news or propaganda?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I would empathize with that because I feel that way too. I mean, I don't feel like I'm not going to do it, but I do feel
Right.
like,
It is a lot.
if I learn one more thing, I'm not going to be eating it all, you
Right.
know?
Well, yeah, because I when I heard you in an interview with someone else, and I'm thinking, well, crap, the produce is grown in such a an ugly and unjust way. What the hell am I supposed to eat? Like, I guess I'll just, I don't know, gnaw on this notebook in front of me. Like, I don't even know what to eat.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think just understanding and empathizing that it is overwhelming. There's no question about that. It's absolutely overwhelming. But I think for those of us who have the privilege of even thinking about where our food comes from, I do think some responsibility comes with that.
Yeah.
And I think that we should look at it as an opportunity, a really amazing opportunity. My job, I had a job where I worked on electronic waste, and how it's dumped overseas and the toxic materials in them.
Mm,
And it was like it's very important work, and I loved the work that I did. But, how often do you buy a laptop? Every few years.
right.
Whereas when we're looking at our food, for those of us with privilege, we do it
Yep.
more than one time a day.
Yep.
And so we actually have an opportunity every single time we shop, every single
Yeah.
time we eat to actually make a difference on something. That's a gift to be able to
For
say,
sure.
this is part of my ethics. This is something that I believe in or not. And I get to support something I believe in, or I get to say no to something that doesn't align with my ethics. And
Yeah.
so I think that we all need to, kind of have our own, way of looking at it. For me, veganism is like, I will not eat an animal. Like, that is, I'm not going to participate in that type of cruelty or
Right.
byproduct or whatever.
Yep.
Chocolate's another big issue for me that I don't want to contribute to,
Yep.
consuming chocolate from enslaved people. Or children who are being forced to labor who've been trafficked hundreds of miles away from their home. Like, those are some of the ones that I'm like, like some things I'll say, like I annoy myself, like my husband and he does the cooking and the grocery shopping. And so, because I'll be there at the grocery store and be like, okay, so do we buy local or organic? Or we'll be on a road trip and I'm like, bottled water or a can of soda. I don't want to buy plastic, like
Right.
then those are
Right.
the types of things that, you just have to think about, you know? And so I
Yes.
think that we all make our own, like, this is my heart issue. And then the other ones, we just need to make informed decisions. And I think that more than, like making our own decisions is important, but also making sure we speak out against things that we don't believe in, that we are opposed to, so that, like for farm workers or what's happening in the chocolate industry, where you have people who were enslaved and child labor and, farmers not being paid well, that we say something about it, because it can't always just be our own individual choices. It has to be our collective voices in making changes in the world around us. So I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of how I try to look at it, is like, wow, this is amazing. There's so many things going on in the world right now that I'm not comfortable with. I don't know that I have much control over, but this, what I
Hmm.
put in my body, I can eat my ethics.
Yes, and I had that down to go deeper on. But I love how you just said something about like stay true to your heart and also make informed decisions, something like that. Does that ring a bell?
I tend not to say things that,
I know.
like,
It
and then
was
I'm like,
good because
what did you
I
say?
didn't want to interrupt you, but I was like I whispered to myself that was good because it's true. It's like okay, I have a hard line. I'm not eating animals. Like that's a non-negotiable. But now I also have all this information, so I need to make an informed decision, like you said about I don't really want that plastic water bottle, or I heard maybe you know otherwise, but I heard that chickpeas are one of the worst when it comes to pesticides. Like of all the
Mm,
legumes, chickpeas for some reason get
wow.
sprayed even more. So if you're gonna pick an organic legume, pick chickpeas. So that was the first one I started buying cans of organic chickpeas. And but there's just the more I learn, the more okay, now I won't buy X, Y, and Z, or now the non-GMO, and now I want to look for uh locally sourced maple syrup. Like I like to buy from a local company, not some massive manufacturer. And there's just a lot. And I like how you said eat your ethics. I've heard you say that so many times. Obviously, it's your thing. So you repeat that often, which is so good. But I want you to expand on that little catchphrase because I would venture to say most people walking around that I know and that are probably listening to this show believe that they are ethical people, believe that they are acting in accordance with deep, important values that are meaningful. And so you say, eat your ethics, and they're thinking, well, stuff it, Lauren. I do have
Exactly.
ethics. What now
Mhm.
you're calling me unethical?
Yep. Yep.
So can you
Yep.
can
I,
you
I
go further on that?
Yeah, and that's kind of it, right? Like, because they get defensive.
Yeah.
Right? What do you mean I'm not eating my ethics?
Yeah.
And that's it, because they need
Right.
to
And then
have
I
it.
get sorry to interrupt you, then I get accused of being in my ivory tower on my soapbox, whatever idiom we want to use, because I'm holier than thou. Because I am doing the best to eat my ethics. No, I am not growing my own food, as I said. So I do have to purchase food that farm workers have unjustly been involved in and low paid cashiers have sold to me. But I do live in the first world in a populated area, so I'm limited as to how much I can provide for myself.
Yeah, and I think that all of that stuff, it helps with the holier than thou attitude, that we all got to just do our best. If I could do better, I would, though. Would you?
Right, right, right.
And so I think that when it comes to the eat your ethics, I think that we want that internal dialogue to them. We want them to think about it. Well, if you care about animals, then why are you eating them?
Yeah,
If you don't want animals to suffer, then isn't it against your ethics to consume them? And that is a dialogue, that we can obviously have with them, but it's better for them to have it with themselves. Am I eating my ethics? What are my ethics? What do I
right.
believe in? Do I believe that people should be paid a living wage? Do I believe that people should be treated with dignity? Do I believe that people should be enslaved for the food that I eat? Do I believe that it's okay to take the life of an animal just because I think they taste good? And that is something that they're going to have to think about, and obviously so much information is out there to help them along this process. But I think their inner dialogue is who they're going to have to answer to, is themselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And it's so tricky because, again, most people that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, I believe, and I'm sure they believe, are good people, are good,
Yeah.
well-meaning people. And the majority of them eat animals many, many times a day.
Well, and the thing is though, is that we probably also know people who are vegan who maybe aren't the best people, right?
Right, right.
So I mean, it goes either way.
Yeah,
That just because
yeah,
someone consumes animals, I mean, it's just a matter of opening their minds. And some people will be like, I know it's wrong, but I'm doing it anyway. There's a part of me that's like, okay, like at least
yeah,
you're being honest about it. Like,
yeah.
you know?
I apologize for interrupting this interview, but I am curious. Have you ever thought about going vegan? Maybe you heard someone talking about it or read an article online, but you're thinking it sounds way too restrictive, way too extreme, way too boring. Not to mention all those concerns about protein. I get it. I've been there myself, and that is why I am offering free coaching sessions to people who are in that hesitation phase, contemplating going forward, but definitely wanting help. That's where I come in. So please go to the show notes and click the link for free vegan lifestyle coaching session, and we'll get started. Now let's get back to the show. I mean, I've heard people say before that if people know the cruelty involved in the system, and I'm mainly talking about the cruelty toward the non-human animals, because the other is
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
further removed from the story.
Mhm.
But I've heard people say that if people know that there's torture and just horror involved in the system, and they're still eating it, knowing what's involved, they are another kind of sociopaths. What do you say to that? That you can still be a good person and know that animal agriculture is despicable, but I'm going to eat it because I like the taste of a burger?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it would be interesting to know why they went back. I think some people learn about it and then it's just convenient.
Yeah.
It's just convenience for them. Maybe their life is stressful, maybe whatever they're going through, and they're like, I don't have the ability anymore. It could be financial.
And I'm not,
Um,
sorry, I'm not referencing former vegans. I'm just referencing ordinary people who have a bit of awareness. Like, yeah, I know that the slaughterhouses kill animals that,
yeah.
I
I
know
don't
my
know.
animal.
I would question if they really know. I
Yeah.
would question if they really truly know. And there's some people who could probably walk into a slaughterhouse and watch them being killed and obviously and still eat animals.
Yeah.
Um, my go-to when I've had discussions with people or discussions meaning arguments at protests and stuff like that
Thanks for
is
your honesty.
yeah, usually it's people who have some vested interest in it, that family member, they grew up on a farm, they work at a place, and so much of it comes from defensiveness that the individuals who know but are still doing it, I would just wonder where that comes from. It's hard for me to say like blanketly. I don't wouldn't know if they're a sociopath or not, but I
Oh,
would say
right. And
but
I know
I
that's a harsh decision to proclaim on someone, but
yeah,
I think a lot of people in my life have heard me pepper in. Not, I'm
yeah,
not stumping about the indecency of factory farming because no one really wants to listen to that unless they've asked.
exactly.
So they know a little bit, whatever I can say carefully, and they still, most people I know, I don't know other than in my virtual space, my podcast, my online communities. I don't know vegans in real life. I don't
Yeah.
actually like dine with vegans.
Yeah. I think like if I think of people who I know who consume animals, and usually the ones who are like, oh, I don't want to watch that.
Yeah,
But then you're like, God, that's so great. You have such compassion. But they don't take that next step.
right. Yeah.
Know where that comes from, it. It's a good question, though.
So I thought it was interesting that you phrased something that I want to play with. So I interviewed the filmmaker of A Prayer for Compassion, Thomas Wade Jackson, and in our conversation he mentioned the Spider-Man quote with great power comes great responsibility,
Mm,
and how, we when we have this knowing of factory farming, we have a responsibility to act in accordance. And I'm going to tweak that for this conversation because you talked about privilege. So I feel like it's almost a spin-off to say with great privilege comes great responsibility.
hmm
And there's a lot of us who are very privileged. Like, I'm so lucky. I do not go to the grocery store and wonder how I'm going to afford my groceries. I pick out whatever I want and I buy it all. And I know that's a privilege.
Yeah.
I also volunteer at a food pantry. So not to assuage my conscience or anything because I'm so lucky I get to shop, so now I'm going to go volunteer. No, it's they're two entirely separate
Yeah.
things. So I want to make that clear, but it does heighten my awareness of how lucky I am. And I feel like there's a good chance that if people have time and ability to listen to podcasts, they also might be living with a great deal of privilege. Maybe not all of them, but a good majority of people who are walking around listening to podcasts have the device to listen to it,
hmm
have the
hmm
time.
Right.
And so there's a lot of privileged people out there.
Yeah.
How can we instill this responsibility to do better?
My feeling has always been, and maybe I'm very generous about this, is that people, for the most part, not everybody, wants to try to do the right thing. We don't intentionally want to harm others. And so that's why we create tools at Food Empowerment Project to help people shop easier. That we do the research, we find what we're comfortable with recommending because I think that people don't want to cause harm for the most part. I think that reaching people is the hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's so much involved in being, especially reaching people who have a lot of privilege. Many of us don't swim in those circles. But just general privilege, I think that, I think it's still hard to reach people. I think it's really
Yeah.
hard. And again, the way that things are right now is that everything's like this, it seems like, that everything's really, you got to do everything in a matter of seconds. And a lot of these issues, they're not sound bites.
No.
And we can try, and obviously some organizations have been successful with that and pulling people in, but sometimes it is like their own relationships with animals, their relationship with their dog or their cat or something like
Yeah.
that opens their minds. And I think that's why, to me at least, it's so important to really be proud of people who care about animals and really foster that as a sense of pride, like, oh, you look like you take such good care of them, like really fostering that compassion towards animals and using words like animals,
Right.
talking about them just as animals. Like we don't need to make anything, in my mind, we don't need to necessarily quote statistics all the time as much as we just need to remind people that inherently they like animals,
Yeah.
and so just expanding that to animals they've never met before. So, I think that sometimes we get caught up in statistics and things like that as a movement instead of,
Yeah.
and sometimes, graphic images work well for some people and that's really great, but it doesn't work for everybody. I know people who I love and care about who consume animals, they are not going to watch anything with that. And we're better off showing them images of happy animals and
Yeah. Yeah.
talking about what happens to them and, how wouldn't we want every, this animal not to have, their tail cut off or, their beak cut off or something
Mm-hmm.
like that and really do it that way. So I think just making sure that we recognize that everybody's different and there isn't one thing that's gonna work. And I think that's
Yeah.
why, in a way, that's good that there's organizations and individuals using different methods and messages, and we individually find which fits, which I'm sure like if you have a friend who's really into the environment, like talking to
Right.
them from the environmental thing, but
Mm-hmm.
so really just making sure that we are reaching people in a way in which they can digest the
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, it's funny when you said sound bites. I got critiqued by a business coach recently that my podcast episodes are too long and who could
Mhm.
possibly devote an hour to listening to a podcast. And I said, well, one, you can increase the speed, which is what I do. I often don't even know what someone's real voice sounds like you, because every podcast I've listened to with you is on 1.5 because that's how I listen to things. I'm good with
Right.
like super fast speed
Yeah.
and I want to get that episode condensed a little bit. So I increase the speed. And I also said to this coach, when I walk my dogs, I got to walk for a while. I have two active
Right.
dogs. I got to walk for a while. I want to put on a podcast that will last me the whole walk. I live in a place where oftentimes the temperature is cold, and I don't want to be taking my phone out and finding another podcast to listen to. So I like a hefty podcast, a nice deep conversation. And so, yeah, he gave me a little bit of grief for that. But I thought to myself, these conversations that I have with people here, these are not 10-minute, 15-minute conversations. It's
Yeah.
impossible to get to the, I hate all these idioms, the meat of the issue in a few minutes. It's a story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's part of the issue right now when you mentioned like fake news before anything is if everything is sound bites or clickbait
Yeah,
or something like when are we
right.
actually learning? When are we actually pondering things and thinking about things? And so yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I used to say that, like, I'm not a soundbite person, like because it's there's too many nuances. And I think the simplistic way we may phrase things removes other people from the conversation. So like the idea when some people say, "Oh, it's easy to go vegan." Well, not for everybody.
Right, right. I have heard you say that.
So it's like we remove people from the conversation when we say things like, because some people are like, "Not for everybody. I'm out of here because they don't understand me." Well, why would we want to do that? Why would we want to for the sake of having a soundbite?
Right. I mean, I do live in the world of needing to create a soundbite for the show or needing
Right.
to
Sure.
make social media content. But yeah, I try to say I will help you as a coach. I will show you that it can be easy for you, easier
Right.
than you think, maybe
Right.
is the soundbite. It's easier than you think. I mean, oh my God, there's a lot of conditioning to undo because with that privilege, there's also the danger of, and I don't mean privilege, I'm not like Bill Gates here, but like
Yeah.
I pay my monthly bills without
Right.
worrying. And
Right.
so that is privilege.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and the people that I live around have the same privilege. And I know people who love to spend good money on very fancy, very exotic cuisine. And it's
Mm,
such a shame that that is usually the most, I can't even find the right word for it, but the most obscene kind of meals. Like the pate, the
foie
foie
gras.
gras, thank you. Like the foie gras and the bone marrow stuffed with
Mm,
blah, blah, blah. Like these things that people believe that's what you get at your five-star Michelin, blah, blah, James Beard, fancy
right,
restaurants. It's like the most endangered species on the plate.
right, right.
Because how could cabbage be exotic? How could Brussels sprouts be fascinating? I get it, like truffles. Okay, so that might be the foie gras of the plant kingdom. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it's its own kingdom, right? Fungus is a different. I don't even know. I forget the classification in biology.
I was picturing that too.
Right. I'm like, where's fungus?
Yeah.
But yeah, truffles, fine. That's like the caviar equivalent. But
Yeah.
it's such a shame that we've got things like caviar and foie gras. I was at a holiday outdoor market back during the pre-holiday season and there was nothing for a vegan. I mean, luckily my husband found one thing. It was like white rice stuffed in seaweed and it was amazing and I thanked the food truck for
Yeah.
having that one item
Hmm.
amongst all 50 trucks or whatever it was. There was that
Totally.
one item And I don't know, my husband had something that wasn't very filling, so he's like, let's just get some fries. I saw someone with fries. I find the French fry stall. Lauren,
No.
they were fried in duck fat. And I
Oh,
thought, wow, you've gone the extra step to take something that was fine
yeah.
on its
Hmm.
own, that was all encompassing. Who doesn't love a French fry? And
Yeah.
you've made it despicable.
Mm.
You had to go out of your way to make that unattainable. That made me so sad that the effort to add animals to something that didn't need animals.
Yeah. I've heard that. I guess it's like the big thing about using, it's not tallow.
Yeah, the beef
Is it
tallow,
tallow?
that, yeah.
Yeah. Again, like putting it
Uh-huh.
back, and it's just
Right.
like, I mean, it's not like they took it out because of concern about animals. They took it out because of concern about people's health. And
Yep.
like, so,
Yep.
so their
Right.
great desire to push animals back on our plates.
Yes.
This is one of the ways they're going about it, is
Yeah.
risking health of the communities again. It's just,
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you said something earlier in the conversation about the word vegan and embracing it, and I'm right there with you, and I'm not nearly as experienced in the movement as you are, or even just in my life. I'm a way shorter term vegan than you. But I am totally happy with that word. And again, I was advised by some people like, "Oh, that's really like triggering and maybe you should say plant-based or flexitarian or some other gentler term." And it's so tricky
yeah.
because plant-based people are typically focused on the health component
Hmm.
and what happens when they lose the 10 pounds or effectively lower their cholesterol.
Yeah.
They'll probably try to integrate those animals again.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like ethic at least encompasses more. And of course, a lot of things that say plant-based at the grocery store aren't even vegan. So,
It's a whole thing. I mean, I Googled something, a salad dressing in my house, and I finally gave up and just threw balsamic vinegar on it because I didn't want to chance it. And I was like, why do I even have these salad dressings in my house? They say dairy free, but
mm,
but there's all those other stabilizers and things in it. And so
mhm.
when I asked my friend AI if that salad dressing was okay for vegans, AI said, you might want to check with the manufacturer directly because blah 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 emulsifier or blah 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 coagulant or whatever
Oh,
the hell it
wow.
was might not be. And I thought it's interesting if it says dairy free on the front, that means it's probably not vegan because if it were vegan, it would they would have gone ahead and said vegan, not dairy free.
It's so hard to know because then there's that big pushback that was like, we're gonna, it's not use the word vegan, so we'll use, but I think dairy free, I mean, it still could include other
Egg,
ingredients that aren't, yeah.
yeah. Or
So,
these other, like they said, these stabilizers that could be meat based or
mhm,
something. Like,
totally.
yeah, how a vinaigrette could have meat in it is astounding.
Right.
But
Totally.
come on,
They'll
people.
figure a way.
Okay, so I want to give you an opportunity to say more about the Food Empowerment Project. And when you said things like we help people shop or we have, what do you do and how do you help people?
Sure. I founded Food Empowerment Project in 2007. And basically, we work on four programmatic areas: veganism for the animals. We do this in a way, though, that really celebrates diversity and cultures. So, as a person of Mexican descent, it was really important for me to have vegan Mexican food and recipes that could celebrate my culture and my foods without animal products. And so, we have various guides that represent our team throughout the years. So we have vegan Mexican food, vegan Filipino food, vegan Lao food, vegan Chinese food, vegan soul food. And all of these are in the appropriate languages on our website as well. And we have printed copies. We also have an anti dairy effort where we talk about colonization in the dairy industry and taking a hard look at that, as well as environmental racism and worker issues. We also work on farm worker justice issues. One of the things we do every year is an annual school supply drive for the children of farm workers. We try to get people not to buy chocolate sourced from slavery and child labor in those areas where it's most prevalent. And for that, we have a list on our website and we have a free app people can download. And basically, every company has to make a vegan chocolate to be on our list. And then finally, we work on lack of access to healthy foods and communities of color. And so those are our four programmatic areas. But on our website, we have more information about commodities such as bananas and wine. And I guess wine isn't a commodity, but bananas, avocados, tea, a lot of foods like that.
Coffee?
Looking at the worker environmental impacts. So really taking a look at like the colonized aspect of bananas, the sexist issues with promoting bananas, and then just the companies that we recommend that sell bananas. So yeah, we take kind of like a hard dive because we know that a lot of people do hear about things. They hear about like, wow, I've been hearing a lot about avocados. And so we want to make it easier for people who hear it to read an article that's well researched and referenced and then have some of our recommendations on the list. Same thing with coffee and things like that, that people hear about. And we just want to make it easier for people who want to try to do, who want to eat their ethics.
I do have your chocolate app.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, somebody told me about it. See, I don't know. I've been hearing a lot about you, Lauren. It's been a while. Uh, this was an important conversation to have. And I do think chocolate is such an integral component to many people's lives. The
Yeah.
thought of not having chocolate ever again. I mean, it's hard enough to cut out the milk chocolate, and now I need to cut out all the unethical dark chocolate, but it has to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we try to make it easier for people. And this is an issue, I think, again, when vegans, are on the same plane as non-vegans to say, like, hey, look, this is an issue. Chocolate is a luxury. It may feel like a necessity, but it really is a luxury. And so let's do our part to make sure that we're not supporting these industries that are enslaving people, abusing people, trafficking people hundreds of miles from their homes, not paying farmers enough that they're forced to use their children to help instead of going to school. That,
Mm.
and our app makes it easy to contact the companies as well.
There was a program, I don't remember when I watched, I want to say it was on Netflix, where each episode focused on a particular industry. Do you know there was like the sugar episode and there was the, I don't now I can't remember, but they were all different items or foods maybe. Oh, there was one on
Yeah.
garlic, I remember.
Mm.
I mean, again, it's one of those you watch and you're like, forget it. Now I'm not going to eat anything ever.
That's
Um,
why we try to create a list to help.
but it was fascinating for me to see because again, I will repeat it so these listeners have no confusion. I live a life of privilege.
Right.
I don't sleep in a box. I don't sleep outside. I do have running water. I do have plumbing and electricity all day every day.
Yeah.
And I'm very very grateful all the time. When I turn my faucet on, I do say thank you. But I watched that episode on the sugar or garlic and looking at these farm workers who were living in dilapidated huts, 10 people to a shack on these, to call them mattresses is not fair to the word mattress. And it was just disgusting that that exists
Yeah.
today.
That exists today in California. You
Yeah,
got you got farm workers who are picking grapes for the wine industry living in creeks. So yeah.
I had, and again, this is, I before we wrap up, I need to praise your awareness as a child again because I had a friend in high school whose father was I grew up on the East
Mhm.
Coast. They came from California. Her father was a migrant worker,
Mhm.
and I don't remember if it was grapes, almonds, avocados. I don't remember one of
Yeah.
those. I didn't understand that at all. I knew
Yeah.
the sound bite of it because that girl said that her dad used to pick something. He was in my 14-year-old clueless brain, a migrant worker.
Yeah.
Uh, I did not pursue further understanding. It took another 30 years for me to tiptoe
Right.
into that thought process.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's so weird to think that we have people who are forced to follow crops in order to survive. That they literally have to pull their children out of school and drive to other states in order to survive. And yeah, it's heartbreaking that I don't know who else has to do that. What other workers have to do that? How we devalue them as human beings to say somehow that's justified, somehow that's okay to put them through that. And I think that there's a lot that goes with that. I think that sometimes people will say things, I could never do the work that farm workers do. It seems so exhausting. But in reality, that implies that somehow the farm workers are superhuman. They're
Right.
tired, they're
Yeah.
hot, they're
Yeah.
exhausted, they don't
That's a
want to
good
be out there. They're doing it to put food on their family's plate and try to get a roof over their head. That's why they're doing it. And again, I think racism is obviously involved, that we see the othering of farm workers, that it's okay for them. They can handle it
point.
versus like, no, they just don't have a choice.
I'm so grateful that you came on and spoke to this because
Mhm.
I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people to cover so many pillars of veganism. And this is truly fascinating and not nearly discussed enough.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so pleased that you could share this information with this audience. And I hope everyone will truly take the eating your ethics method to heart. Would you tell people where to find more information about you and what you're doing?
Sure. Food Empowerment Project is at foodispower.org. And that has a link to all of our other recipe guides.
I love that. And if I could maybe make a little plug, while I am not a woman of color, I am a woman of culture. And I think it would be fascinating. I don't know if it would go against your bylaws or your whole mission, but I think it would be really interesting if you had a guide for traditional Jewish cuisine.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of people, I mean, a lot of my family, uh, look at it and say that these are just traditional meals. Like I mean, obviously you're not going to veganize a roast chicken.
Yep.
We would just remove that. But things like, I don't know if you've ever heard of kugel. It's a noodle casserole dish, usually made sweet. It can be made savory, but it's not nearly as enjoyable. So I haven't made it in years. And when I did, it had an abomination of dairy and eggs
Mhm.
in it. I mean, I think the recipe called for, if I'm remembering correctly, 8 eggs.
Wow.
It had name the dairy item, it's in it. Truly, it was butter, sour cream, cream cheese. There was something else, cottage cheese. It's all in
Mm.
there.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
and then a boatload of again unjustly sourced sugar and
Mhm.
and so it bakes into this beautiful crust noodle casserole that is divine and very common amongst Jewish
Mm.
households at holiday
I
time.
I had never heard of that. I heard a lot of the other foods, but I've not heard of that.
Yeah, so I would just maybe, put that on your radar
Thank you.
for, and while I am not a Jewish woman of color, there probably are
Yeah,
many,
there are
yeah, if we looked at the Sephardic community.
definitely.
So that might be something interesting to research. While I do love eating all kinds of ethnic cuisine, I am confronted with these Jewish foods every so
Right.
often, and they're just unpalatable for
Yeah,
me.
right.
Oh, and then the egg noodles to
Right,
really
I've seen that, yep.
bring it to another level because
Yeah.
that's how you make the noodle kugel is you need the egg noodles. So it's just how much more animal can we put in there? Maybe we should drizzle some duck fat on as well.
Just to dip your french fries in it.
Exactly. All right. So now the final question is, as the founder of an organization with food in its title, I will need you to share with this audience one or more of your favorite vegan foods.
I always talk about how I started an organization with the word food in it, and I don't really like food.
How
I
about
actually,
that?
I see food as a tool for social change. And that's why I like food, because I think throughout history, we've seen such powerful changes from the anti-apartheid movement to the abolitionist movement in England using sugar to the United Farm Workers using grapes. So much power with food. And so that's how I view food. But obviously, I do eat. Um, I would say that, I mean, I love Thai food. Thai food's absolutely one of my
I had Thai
favorites.
food for lunch.
Oh, I love Thai food. And I like popcorn and French fries, not the healthiest. I was like you when I was a teenager, is like going vegan was like junk food vegan. Of course, there wasn't a lot of vegan stuff in Texas in the 80s, but yeah, I love Thai food. And obviously, I love Mexican food, but yeah,
Yeah.
and Ethiopian food. Yeah.
So many choices,
Yeah.
right? People think going vegan is limiting. They have no idea.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, my God, there's so many foods I want to eat in a day, and there's just not enough stomach space. There just isn't. I'll keep trying though.
Right.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom and encouragement with this audience. I am so grateful.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And we're around if anybody has any questions. Happy to help on their progress.
Well, I hope you loved this conversation with Lauren Ornelas and learning about the Food Empowerment Project and the dirty little secrets embedded in our food system. So now let me get into the juicy bits of this conversation. Number one, young children have empathy toward animals, but unfortunately it's pushed out of them because we're taught to grow up, stop crying, and accept what is. Number two, no matter the label, animals are transported in horrific conditions and killed in horrific ways. So if you care that much, you need to take that extra step. Number three, what does sustainable mean to you? Because it should mean that every living being can live their life fully with dignity and respect. Number four, once you start thinking outside of yourself, it opens you up to thinking of others. And if we have the privilege to think about our food choices, then we have a responsibility to do better. Number five, when we look at the food system, the industrial food system of which we all partake, every step of the way there are humans exploited. And the Food Empowerment Project shines a light on all of it. So it's important to make informed decisions and also to speak out against that which you find unacceptable. Number six, the Food Empowerment Project focuses on 4 specific areas: veganism for the animals, anti-dairy efforts, farm worker justice, and the lack of access to healthy foods that too many people experience. Number 7, and keep in mind that for 10 years I had a home-based dessert company, and chocolate was a massive component of almost everything I made. Chocolate is a luxury. Let's try not to support industries that are enslaving, abusing, and trafficking people. And I get that it's a hard one to swallow because many people consider themselves chocoholics. Unfortunately, chocolate is one of the most vicious industries. So Lauren does have an app that I will link in the show notes so you can make more informed chocolate decisions. Number 8, food is a tool for social change. We have so much power when it comes to food. And again, it's that word empowerment that keeps coming up in all of these episodes. And finally, number 9, Lauren's favorite foods include ethnic cuisines like Thai and Mexican, popcorn, which is one of my all-time favorite foods, and French fries. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you would please take a moment to like or subscribe to this podcast, share this episode with a friend, and of course, stay tuned for the next episode in 2 weeks, which will feature the one and only Dr. Neil Barnard. Yes, you heard that correctly. He will be here sharing medical expertise and a profound sensitivity and sense of compassion toward animals, which is hard to come by when you're talking to a world-renowned doctor about health. You do not want to miss that episode. And so with that, I wish you a happy May Day, a beautiful start to May, And of course, it's with a heart full of gratitude and a fridge full of veggies that I send you peace, love, and chickpeas. Mwah!